One of my most viewed YouTube videos is all about the different ways that I garden vertically. And in the 3 years since I published that video, I've implemented even more vertical gardening techniques in my garden. And in today's video, I'm going to share 10 more ideas for how to add vertical space to your garden. My name's Angela from Growing in the Garden. I garden in Mesa, Arizona in Zone 9B. I love sharing garden inspiration and helpful tips so you can be successful in your garden. In my first video, there were so many comments asking me why I didn't use cattle panels in my garden. Well, actually I do, I just didn't show them in the video. Cattle panels have a sturdy structure and they're excellent tools for vertical gardening. Here's some of my favorite ways to use them. Use cattle panels to grow tomatoes. Their large size makes growing indeterminate tomatoes easy. Shape a cattle panel into an arch between 2 garden beds and create a cucumber or bean trellis. Cucumbers and beans can hang down for easy picking. Cattle panel is just the right size for growing peas or growing squash vertically. I love growing cut flowers, but they can grow tall and staking each individual flower can be tedious. I borrowed a trick from flower farmers and added trellis netting to my raised bed. I use wooden pole supports in each corner and then I stretch the net between the poles. The netting is held taut between the stakes. Cut off the excess netting and the flowers grow up and are supported by the netting. If you have taller flowers, you can use 2 layers of netting several inches apart. This year I grew Lysianthus using this method and I was thrilled with the results. The flowers grew up through the netting and were supported until it was time to harvest them. One of my favorite additions is this Freyr Trellis. Every now and then you come across a product that is thoughtfully designed, beautifully executed, and well made, and this Freyr Trellis is it. It was simple to install and a joy to put together. I have loved the utility and beauty that this Freyr Trellis adds to my garden. You attach strings to the pole and then grow up the strings, or do what I did and attach a jute string trellis and allow the crops to grow up that jute trellis. This will be a beautiful, long-lasting part of my garden. I'm almost embarrassed to admit this next one. I have had this rebar trellis in my garden for years. I just realized this season that by stringing twine between these 2 poles, I could support a plant in between them. I did that this year with these tomatillos and it has worked amazingly well. I attached the twine to either side and the tomatillos have grown up through the trellis. Tomatillos can get really unruly and they have a lot of branches and they're often hard to trellis. This system has worked perfectly for these tomatillos. So I would encourage you to look around your garden and see if there are things in place already that you can use to help support your crops to grow vertically. Look at your garden and see where you already have supports in place. Could you use them to support crops? I didn't include these in the first video, but I have always used them, and I'm guessing this is something you use too. Tomato cages. They often get a bad rap because they don't always work really well for tomatoes, especially the larger indeterminate types. But when used for smaller crops, tomato cages can actually be a very effective way to support your crops. It's usually just the right size to provide the needed support for pepper plants. Tomato cages are also helpful when growing small determinate or dwarf style tomatoes. If you're looking for a statement piece, try this. The Gracie Modern Arbor. I have admired the beauty and elegance of this arbor for years, and I was thrilled to get to add one to the entrance to my garden last fall. Right now, I've got loofah vines making their way up, and I've also planted some coral vine. I'm hoping that will take over and just cover this arbor as well. This Gracie modern arbor was simple to install, it's exceptionally well made, and you can get it from Freyr Trellis. I had to include one of my favorite ways one more time, this ladder mesh block trellises. I keep finding more ways to use these to garden vertically. I'm really loving using them in grow bags and adding them to various areas of my garden. It's so inexpensive and versatile. I have an entire video dedicated to how I use this, but I wanted to be sure to add it again in case you hadn't heard about this way of gardening vertically. A new one for me are these galvanized cube towers. I was excited when I saw them at the local nursery. Here's what I love about them. They're nice and large. The size and scale is really good. They're also easy to install. You push the supports down into the soil. Once they're installed, they're really sturdy. The interior is nice and large. There's plenty of room for crops to grow. And then you can collapse them down for easy storage. You can find them in local nurseries or online from Midwest Wireworks. I am a huge fan of growing in whiskey barrels. I have several throughout my garden. My friend's husband makes these supports that fit inside them perfectly. I've seen variations of this type of trellis that fits inside of a whiskey barrel. If you add a trellis, it doubles your growing space to these and allows you to grow up. The supports are perfect for growing things like sweet peas, one of my favorite climbing flowers. They're really easy to install. You just put the supports down into the ground and then they're sturdy once they're installed. Another favorite method for gardening vertically is bamboo poles. They are inexpensive and so versatile. I use them all around my garden when I have a plant that needs some extra support. They're especially helpful for certain types of beans like borlotti beans. If something growing that needs a little bit of extra support, put a bamboo pole into the ground right next to it, and then I use these clips to attach it to the stem. Things like beans will grow naturally up the poles. If you know what you're growing is going to need some support, like these borlotti beans, put the poles in place when you're planting, they'll grow up. Vertical gardening will always be a part of how I garden. I hope you've enjoyed seeing these additional ways that I've added vertical space. Let me know in the comments your ideas. I would love to learn more and find new ways. Thank you so much for watching.